Anime tends to have some of the best rivalries around, and sometimes matchups lead to rematches. From Vegeta and Goku going all out for a rematch, to Guts and Griffith fighting to part ways. We've compiled a list of some of the best rematches in anime. So let's not keep you waiting and dive headfirst into the video. Starting off this list, we have the two sisters Akame and Kurome from Akame ga Kill. Now, their relationship is complicated, so in other words, the two are constantly at odds with one another to the point where their battles are to the death. Both of them were trained as assassins by the Empire, but drifted apart and later ended up at odds once they joined different factions. Both of them are pretty powerful, with Kurome having a Teigu that could reanimate and control corpses, whereas Akame's weapon has a one-hit kill function. The first time we see the two lock swords is when they're fighting in groups. Akame had to fight against both Kurome and Natala during the time. The fight doesn't have a clear victor, so we're glad we got to see the two sisters properly match up during the final duel. Both sides showed deep emotions and the battle was pretty awesome. Kurome's puppets were defeated and she also had to solo Akame, which ended up disastrous for her as our heroine landed the final blow, ending Kurome's life and putting an end to their rivalry. But hey, do you like watching gigantic battleships shoot at one another? If you're unfamiliar, our sponsors of this video, World of Warships, is an incredible free-to-play naval warfare-themed multiplayer game, and now they've teamed up with an anime game sensation, Azur Lane, for a crossover that won't disappoint. Imagine waking up with your favorite Azur Lane ship girls as you pilot them across the high seas. From the dynamic Shimakaze to the dangerous Hornet, these characters have been remade with fresh voice casts, skins, and even their own premium ships. The detail in them is just incredible. You can tell the creators have worked really hard to make sure these Azur Lane ships and characters are authentic to the anime game in every aspect. And to top it off, World of Warships is offering brand new players a tremendous bonus when they use the code SIXTHWAVEAZURLANE whenever they sign up. You'll get a great package of premium items including 1.5 million credits, 600 doubloons, 7 days of premium account, 1 Azur Lane crate, Shimakaze Lane Commander, Fuso Azur Lane Commander, and even the destroyer Fubuki herself. It's the most perfect way to plunge into this crossover show. Download World of Warships and use the invite code SIXTHWAVEAZURLANE to play now. Next up, we have Meliodas and Barn from 7 Deadly Sins. Barn's immortality and ability to snatch his opponent's strengths and limbs versus Meliodas' sheer power would prove to be an awesome matchup. The first time we get to see these two deck it out was during the Vizel Fight Festival, and boy was it a sight to watch. Both of them seemed evenly matched and pounded on each other until Meliodas used his OP power to send Barn flying, winning the battle. It's a good thing Barn is immortal since boy did he take a beating. It makes sense that you'd get to see the two fighting in tournament conditions, but their rematch took place on more serious grounds. The rematch took place after a goddess offered to bring Elaine, Barn's love interest, back to life if he could kill Meliodas. So, just like any good friend, Barn heads off to hunt his best friend. Their rematch was absolutely brutal as the two fought it out with Barn hell-bent on reviving Elaine. After this awesome fight, Barn finally saw reason and the two ended their proper rematch. Sports anime tend to have some of the most exciting battles and rivalries, and one such rivalry was between Ippo and Sendo. The first proper match between the two was during the All Japan Rookie King tournament. The battle between the two was intense and lasted a total of 3 rounds. Ippo eventually won the fight as Sendo took a strong right to the temple, causing him to become unconscious while he was sitting after the gong rang. With such an awesome matchup, it's no wonder that fans wanted to see a rematch between these two monsters, and gladly enough, this wouldn't be the last time they fought. Their next matchup would be during the JBC featherweight title match, where they showed their insane boxing skills after numerous episodes of battles and training. The rematch lasted much longer than their last bout, ending up at a total of 7 rounds. This battle was even more intense than the first as the two dealt massive damage to each other, but Ippo came out on top again in the end, becoming the new JBC featherweight champion. Poor Sendo just can't catch a break. Speaking of sports anime, the next entry on this list is Gaijo High vs Seirin High from Kuroko no Basket. Seirin High is the team in which our protagonists Kuroko and Kagami play, while Gaijo High has Kisei forward from the Generation of Miracles. During this time, Kagami and Kuroko were getting into the flow of things, and this was their first confrontation with a player from the Generation of Miracles, as well as their first real match together. Even though this was just a practice match, it was still pretty heated. In the end, Seirin High ended up winning with a game-ending alley-oop. The practice match didn't have any stakes involved, so it was fine, but the next match between these two teams was during the Winter Cup semi-finals. This rematch was in a league of its own, especially during the middle when Kisei had to sub out and Seirin High gained a substantial lead. It wasn't until the last 4 minutes that Kisei was subbed back in, and he proceeded to decimate the 15-point lead Seirin High had managed. The last few seconds had fans on the edge of their seats, but Seirin High again took the victory with a final hoop, securing their place in the finals. Smashing its way onto this list from the volleyball court is Haikyuu. And what better rematch to choose than the one where Karasuno played against Aoba Josai for a place at the Nationals. Coming into this battle, Karasuno were definitely the underdogs, craving some delicious revenge after Aoba Josai eliminated them during the Miyagi Inter-High prelims. You see, during that match, Hinata and Kageyama's monster quick was blocked, ending their entire run. It was heartbreaking to see, but I do have to say, this match was not only exciting, but also kept me on the edge of my seat the entire time. You could see just how much both teams had grown since the last time they met. It was only when I saw the ball land on the floor that I finally felt relieved. We know that every team wanted to reach the Nationals, but you could really feel the passion and drive of these two teams throughout the entire match to reach the pinnacle. The ending was amazingly done as well, with a back-to-back sequence from Hinata smashing the ball to Oikawa trying to save it. Sports anime aside now, let's move back to a good old one-on-one battle with Lancer versus Archer.
I am the pawn of my sword.
Now these two heroes are exceptionally powerful and they show off the extent of their strengths during this fight scene. Their first fight was right at the start of the season. Archer protects Rin from Lancer and the two end up in a fierce duel that's equally fast. They seem pretty evenly matched, but the fight ends before we can see either of them use their noble phantasms, which was quite the bummer. But hey, this is a list of rematches, so you already know that this wasn't the only time they faced off. Their next battle would be even cooler, as this time Lancer engages Archer to help Rin and Shiro. The battle had some of the best choreography and animation around, which truly helped amplify the experience. We even got to see Lancer use his gay bulk against Archer, who used a magical barrier to just barely counter the overpowered attack. Good thing Archer staged everything and got Lancer to leave, otherwise things might not have ended so well for him. Next up we have Akutagawa versus Atsushi from Bungo Stray Dogs. Atsushi can turn into a tiger, increasing his strength, speed, and regenerative abilities, while Akutagawa's ability, Rashomon, allows him to turn his overcoat into a high-attack power thread-like substance that can even be used for defense. The fight between the two occurred in an alleyway, and during the start, Akutagawa cut off Atsushi's leg. Now this resulted in him transforming into his tiger form, regaining his leg and overpowering Akutagawa. Unfortunately though, we couldn't find a victor for the battle because of Osamu Dazai's arrival, who nullified their abilities, halting the fight. The rematch would happen afterwards on one of the Mafia's cargo ships. Stuff happens when Atsushi stands to face Akutagawa once again. This fight is much longer and a lot more intense than the last one, and this time we end up having a clear winner. Akutagawa stayed on top for most of the fight, but eventually Atsushi's tenacity got the better of him, and Atsushi even shattered Akutagawa's devoured space. Breaking the barrier, Atsushi landed a punch to Akutagawa's face and launched him into the sea, coming out on top in this rematch. Rivals fighting off make for some of the best rematch sequences, and the same can be said here for Bakugo versus Midoriya. Their first fight happened during UA training, where Deku chose to stand his ground and show Bakugo that he would no longer be bullied by him. Even though Midoriya held one for all during this time, Bakugo's battle sense and control over his explosion quirk were in a league of their own. Midoriya literally had to destroy the entire building to win the training battle with Uraraka. Their second face-off though was even better. Bakugo challenged Midoriya once more after theorizing over the source force of Midoriya's quirk, and this time the two would go all out. The fight becomes intense once Midoriya understands Bakugo's emotions behind wanting to fight him. The two go all out during the fight, and it makes for some of the coolest fight scenes in the anime. It's made even better considering the depth of emotions fueling the two and how they use their fists to speak their hearts. In the end, Bakugo comes out on top, even with Midoriya having All Might's power. The next match we have was between Thorfinn and Torkel from Vinland Saga.
見える。大丈夫だ。
A relatively short, dexterous Thorfinn up against a giant with godly strength ends up being one of the coolest fights we got to witness back during the first time we saw these two fight. Surprisingly, Torkel took the most permanent wounds during this fight as he tended to block Thorfinn's knives with his bare hands, but Thorfinn eventually had to escape to preserve his life. Their rematch though would prove to be astounding, as this time Torkel used his axes instead of going barehanded. During the first half of the fight, Torkel broke Thorfinn's right arm and his attack caused Thorfinn to lose consciousness. It wasn't until Askeladd came around to help him out that Thorfinn was able to gouge out Torkel's eye and defeat him. It is a bummer that Thorfinn needed help with this, but the fight was still awesome to watch as these two had completely different strengths. Before revealing the top 10 of this list, we have the rematch between Alucard and Anderson. The expert monster hunter has superhuman strength, durability and regenerative powers, coupled with his exceptional combat skill which made him one of the most noteworthy foes that Alucard fought. Even though Alucard was by far the most strongest being around with nigh immortality, Anderson did quite the number on him and was able to go toe-to-toe with our anti-hero, even causing him to retreat. Their rematch though would prove to be one of the best fights in the series, as it's also the final battle. Alucard, with all of his power, faces off against Anderson, who eventually uses Helena's nail to become a monster himself. The rematch is absolutely insane as the rivals show off their excessive strength. The two seem evenly matched, but as Alucard states, Anderson would no longer be able to beat him now that he's become a monster. Alucard eventually overpowers Anderson and pulls out his heart, ending the deadly feud with it. Alright, before we head into the top 10 of this video, it would be great if you could give this video a like. About 84% of the audience don't subscribe while watching this content. A small step from your end would really go a long way for ViniiTube, so go ahead and make sure to subscribe to the channel so that we can keep making more videos for you. Let's get back to the video. Starting off the top 10, we have Gojo versus Toji from Jujutsu Kaisen. Out of all the rematches mentioned in this list, this one had the shortest time between the battles. It's also amongst the best animated fights we've seen since, of course, MAPPA has given its heart and soul to animate Jujutsu Kaisen. We know how strong Gojo is right now, being in a league of his own, but back when he was still a Jujutsu High student, he had to fight against Toji Fushiguro, the strongest foe he would come up against. Despite being a non-curse user, Toji outsmarts Gojo and stabs him in the neck with the inverted Spear of Heaven, stopping his Limitless and negating the Infinity. He proceeds to stab Gojo a bit more, making it seem like Gojo has been brutally murdered. Unfortunately for Toji though, Gojo ended up surviving the brutal onslaught through the use of a reverse curse technique. He would then go on to find Toji and fight him again, but with new moves up his sleeve. We get to see Gojo use his curse technique reversal, Red, before finally finishing off Toji with Hollow Purple, the first chronological use of the technique. It was one of the most badass fight scenes around as Gojo covered his loss in a brutal one-sided rematch. Guts and Griffith's rivalry is quite possibly one of the most spoken of in anime, and for good reason too. But before Griffith betrayed everyone in the Band of the Hawk, these two fought on two separate occasions. The first time was when Griffith saw Guts and wanted to recruit him. This resulted in the two fighting it out with Guts' loyalty on the line. The battle was heavily one-sided as Griffith quickly got the upper hand on Guts and defeated him, resulting in Guts joining the band. The rematch would come along much later and would have long-lasting effects on both of their relationships. Now at this point, the two have become adults and Guts intends to leave the company with the goal of becoming someone who can stand side by side with Griffith. Griffith isn't too keen on the prospect and ends up challenging Guts again to have him stay. The rematch ends in a single blow as Guts slices down at Griffith, breaking his sword in half but stopping right before touching Griffith. Just like before, the battle was one-sided, only this time Guts came out on top and left the Band of the Hawk. Quite possibly one of the most noteworthy rematches, as it would lead to a series of events that would spell the demise of everything Guts held dear. Next up we have Gon and Hisoka from Hunter x Hunter. Now Hisoka is one of the strongest and most menacing evil dudes around. He's a member of the Phantom Troop and extremely self-absorbed, having a weird love for spilling the blood of powerful opponents. Definitely not the best matchup for our protagonist. The first time these two threw hands was during the Hunter exams, where Gon was forced to fight Hisoka when he randomly decided to kill a bunch of people. Gon was no match for Hisoka. With Ryo with him, they survived on Hisoka's whim. The rematch these two had would show that Gon had grown since their matchup, but not so much that he would pose a threat to our deranged antagonist. During the last match at the Heavens Arena, Gon fought against Hisoka again in what was quite possibly one of the coolest hand-to-hand fights in Hunter x Hunter. Gon had grown enough to land a blow on Hisoka, but the latter was still too strong and defeated Gon with minimal effort. Maybe round 3 would be better. Friends turned foes. Master and student Eren versus Annie has both those traits going on. Annie refined Eren's hand-to-hand combat, and they were comrades in arms who had to fight against the Titans together. Unfortunately, things would take a turn for the worst after the twist that Annie was the female Titan. The first time Eren fought her was during the 57th expedition of the Survey Corps, when Eren was forced to transform to stop Annie's bloodshed, even though he didn't know who he was fighting at the time. It was a brutal battle that ended with Annie overpowering and kidnapping Eren. Their rematch would occur after Eren and the gang figure out that Annie is in fact the female Titan. While trying to capture her, Eren transforms, resulting in another. The first half of the battle seemed like a repeat of the last time, but afterwards Eren's rage drove him to finally overpower Annie and eventually led to her capture. Next up we have Gintoki versus Takasugi from Gintama. Now this is one of the longest rivalries, as these two have apparently fought almost 500 times with an even score of wins and losses until this particular rematch. The two had been childhood friends and disciples of the same master, but the death of their sensei resulted in both of them going down completely different paths and harboring a certain hatred for each other for completely different reasons. One became violent and wanted to burn down the whole world, while the other became a pacifist and wanted to learn to love this world. They had exactly the opposite ideals, but the fact that they hated what the other had become eventually led to this face-off, and boy was it a treat to watch. The fight devolved from brutal sword fighting to a raw fist fight, and both of them did their best to harm the other. It was so intense and backed by some pretty deep emotions. In the end, Takasugi added a win to his list, but it felt like Gintoki won in a psychological sense. The rematch was definitely amongst the best you could watch. Goku and Vegeta are some of the most famous characters in anime, and they happen to be rivals. Although they fought each other numerous times to save everyone, these two started off on the wrong foot, mainly because Vegeta had come for the Dragon Balls and was pretty much a bloodthirsty villain. Their initial fight had some pretty high stakes, and by the end, both Goku and Vegeta were at death's door. Stuff would happen later on, and Vegeta would eventually become a protector of Earth, until the Babidi saga, that is. Vegeta tried desperately to surpass Goku after his initial defeat, but over the course of the series, after witnessing Goku's Super Saiyan 2 transformation, Vegeta realized that he couldn't overcome him, so he opts to transform himself into a Majin by Babidi to reclaim his old evil self. The rematch starts off with Majin Vegeta and Goku squaring off, and it's one of the most intense battles in the saga. The two go all out, and fans were just super hyped about it. Unfortunately though, it's arguable that there was a clear winner in the fight, since a surprise attack from behind by Vegeta may not be a sure shot winner to most fans. But hey, the rematch was something to look at. Before revealing the top 3 of this list, we have Luffy versus Lucci from One Piece. The first time these two fought marked the start of Luffy's gear transformations. Lucci was the first person to take on the full might of Gear 2 and 3, and boy was it an awesome battle. Luffy had to exert himself more than he ever had to before in a single fight, and it made for an astounding sequence. Our protagonist won in the end, but it was by a pretty small margin. We thought we'd seen the end of Lucci after that arc, but we were wrong, since he recently showed up for an epic rematch with Luffy. This time, Luffy had Gear 5 in his arsenal, and Lucci had awakened his Devil Fruit as well. The two clashed in their strongest forms, but Lucci still proved to be no match for our hero. It was still an awesome fight that was pretty hype, but honestly, considering how Luffy is now an emperor, most fans could guess that even with his power-up, Luffy would be too strong of an opponent to fight against. Coming up next, we have Ichigo versus Byakuya. The first time Ichigo faced off against Byakuya was when he was trying to stop Rukia from being taken back to Soul Society. This was near the start of the series, and during this time, Ichigo couldn't possibly hope to match a captain of the Gotei 13. Byakuya made short work of Ichigo with minimal effort, even taking apart his Zanpakuto in the process. Now this marked the start of Ichigo's training to get stronger, and the next time they would meet for a rematch showed just how far Ichigo had come. After saving Rukia from execution, Byakuya shows up to face Ichigo, resulting in a fierce battle. This was the first time we saw Ichigo use Bankai, and it made perfect sense for the reveal to be against someone of Byakuya's caliber. During the fight, Hollow Ichigo comes out as well, but Ichigo eventually overcomes Zangetsu and lands the final blow while in control of himself, showing Byakuya just how far he's come by winning the battle. Can't have a list of rematches without mentioning this beautiful fight. Nanashi is our wandering protagonist while Luo Lang is the primary antagonist. The first time these two meet is through sheer coincidence, but both parties realize the other's caliber, causing Luo Lang to pick a fight with our hero. The battle had some insane choreography and moves, but the fight was cut short without a clear winner. The only outcome was that both parties had weighed in on the other's potential strength. Their rematch would take place during the final battle of the anime, and it was one of the most beautifully animated and choreographed fight scenes on the list. Luo Lang juiced up on the drugs, while Nanashi fought through exhaustion, making use of the environment to his advantage. It was a stunning battle that had everything riding on it, and in the end, Luo Lang was the first to fall. Nanashi wasn't unscathed either, as he was bleeding out at the end, but the fight the two gave us definitely ranks it amongst the best. The top position on our list belongs to Naruto and Sasuke. These two have been rivals since the start of the series, constantly competing with each other and getting into fights. The most major fight though was back when they were kids and the two went all out with a clash of ideals at the Valley of the End. The fight was one of the best prior to the time skip, but Naruto ended up losing and Sasuke left to pursue his path to revenge. After the vast number of events in Naruto Shippuden, these two rivals would face each other in a final battle that wasn't just a clash of power, but rather a clash of ideals. Sasuke wanted to sever his bond with Naruto while the latter wanted to honor the promise he made years ago. The rematch consisted of some amazing fight choreography, an extravagant display of advanced jutsu, as well as raw emotion. It was quite honestly one of the best rematches we've ever seen, and it marked the climax to a rivalry in one of the most loved anime of all time. Naruto was the one who came out on top during their final battle, leading to a very impactful ending as Naruto fulfilled the promise he'd made to bring back his friend. And with that, we wrap up this list of top 20 anime rematches. With so many anime, we're bound to have missed out on some of the rematches, so do mention in the comments if your favourite one didn't make it to the list. Don't forget to check out World of Warships through the link in the description and the code for amazing bonuses. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and share it with your friends to see more. See you next time.